Good evening, everybody. My name is David Eisenberg. I'm the chair of the Verdugo Hills Group, but I'm also had the Zoom account to do this this program and the expertise to do it. So that's just why I'm involved. I want to let everybody know that this is a webinar. This is not a regular Zoom meeting. So we won't be able to see or hear you. You'll only be able to see or hear the panelists, which are the candidates. And but we do want you to be able to interact with us. So there is at the bottom, usually it's at the bottom of your screen. There's some tablets that's at the top. There's a Q&A button. And if you hover over your screen and if you push that, you can type your question in and we will have time to answer questions. So we'd like to ask that you address the questions to all of the candidates. If you have a question for a particular candidate, I would suggest you contact them directly. So everybody has a chance to speak. With this number of people, we want to get as many generally relevant questions. So the format we're going to use is we are going to ask each candidate to introduce themselves for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then we will take questions, as many as we have time for, and then we will end with a 2-minute closing from each candidate, and they'll be in different orders. That being said, type your questions at any time that it becomes obvious to you that you have a question. But I'd like to turn this over to Donna Specht, who is the nominating committee co-chair, right?
Yeah, co-chair.
It's all yours.
Okay. Well, the chapter executive committee is a group of club leaders that is responsible for assuring the activities and services provided by the chapter, including groups, sections, and other entities, comply with the chapter bylaws, the standing rules, the policies and directives of the board of directors and the club, and applicable law. These activities may include financial management, membership services, production of publications, conservation, outings, and political programs. And the leaders are the decision makers of the chapter, and it is important for the executive committee members to contribute to the chapter's cohesiveness and financial stability. In order for the chapter to thrive, it needs an executive committee whose members are actively working to ensure the health and success of the chapter. A healthy chapter is essential to support the committees, groups, sections, and task forces as they carry out the official efforts of the and protect, preserve, and enjoy the environment. The chapter executive committee consists of 9 elected at-large members, and there are 5 at-large seats open for the 2-year period 2022-23. I just saw on the chapter blog, it said there are only 4 seats open, but there are 5. There were 5 incumbents and 1 Debbie Dresner stepped down for the season coming up. And the voting will open October 4th to November 15th. And our candidates are, I think there was something else I need to say too. Yeah, the group elections. Okay, and our candidates are Brian Biery. Is Jose on yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Steve Dunwoody, Liliana Griego, Coby King, John Monsen, Elizabeth Neat, who is up north. She can't be on tonight. Bettie Pearson. Is Betty here? And Bettie Pearson is also. Yes, she is. Yeah, okay, good. And then Betty is also a candidate for the Crescenta Valley group. Diana Pena, And Diane Trautman is in New Hampshire. She might sign on for a bit, but it's late there. And Ara Vasquez and Annalisa Klein. I think that's it. Did I hit everything there?
Okay. Anybody missed that should have been talked about? So this is a pretty good turnout. So you get a good chance, everybody gets a good chance to hear everybody. So I'm going to use a random order for calling on people for their introductory comments. And Coby, you're first up.
Okay, well, let's jump right into it. Well, good evening, and thank you, David. My name is Coby King. I want to thank the nominating committee for putting me on the ballot. I've been an environmentalist all my life and an active Sierra Club member for a quarter century. And I'm running, if anyone has seen my statement, I'm running because if I'm elected, I'll work hard to preserve our open spaces and move forward climate-friendly policies through activism, coalition building, and outings. Now, for 23 years, since I first climbed Mount Islip, I've been devoted to climbing peaks, especially on the 100 Peak section and the Lower Peaks Committee list. That's over 300 different peaks. And over those years, I've become deeply convinced that maintaining a robust and well-managed outings program is critical to achieving many of the club's missions to preserve and protect the environment. For many people, seeing our local mountains and being surprised and amazed at the diversity and beauty of the landscapes is the first step to preserving these special places from the ravages of development and climate change. Putting those beliefs into action, I was elected to the 100 Peak Section Management Committee in 2013. I was immediately elected vice chair of ExCom and have served as either chair or vice chair ever since. I'm coming off ExCom this year as the only 4-time chair in HPS's history. During that time, I've helped to move HPS in a very positive direction. Our bi-monthly newsletter and our election process are now electronic, reducing our climate footprint. I've helped HPS modernize and work to attract younger people to our outings. I've also served as HPS's Facebook administrator from the very beginning and as webmaster and executive committee member for the Lower Peaks Committee. I want to renew efforts to expand our outings leadership and incorporate justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion into our programs. Also, I believe deeply in the environmental benefits of transit. Over the past 10 years, I've become a leader on bringing more transit to the San Fernando Valley, where I live, and was a key proponent of 2016's Measure M, which is funding the East San Fernando Light Rail Line, a game changer for underserved communities in the East Valley, improving the Orange Line bus rapid transit, and providing funding for the Sepulveda Line to finally connect the Valley and the West Side. I've participated on the chapter's transportation committee for many years and will bring my expertise and connections to the chapter's advocacy. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to answering further questions.
Thank you. And we have a request, and I think it's a good thing to do during the introduction. So if you could add this, Coby, people would like to know which regional group each person is in as a question. I think that would be a good idea to add. So if you want to add that in before I call on the next person.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I live in the Valley, and that's my regional group, the San Fernando Valley.
Okay. Thank you. Next person up is, we're going to not use the raised hand during this part, just during the questions. Bettie Pearson, would you like to go next, please? Bettie? I don't think we're hearing you. You want me to call on you later? Just wave your hand. It's not muted. I think you've selected the wrong mic. Okay, I will come back to Bettie. Let's do Liliana Griego is next.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Liliana Griego, and I am an incumbent that is seeking your support so I can serve for a second term on the executive committee. And I am in the Pasadena regional group. growing up in Los Angeles, I didn't really know that much about the mountains that served as the backdrop of the city I grew up in until I became involved with the Sierra Club. My journey began after I completed my master's degree in marine conservation, and I felt very overwhelmed by the devastating environmental issues that were surrounding us and unsure on how I could play a part in resolving them. But I quickly found a solution as I became a participant in the Nature for All Leadership Academy, which is a program that the Sierra Club helps lead and facilitate and focuses on civic engagement and advocacy for the San Gabriel Mountains. And I quickly became very passionate in using my background in science to advocate for environmental awareness and change, particularly in Southern California, where I grew up. And when I first joined the Sierra Club, I was welcomed and given a lot of support. And I quickly dove in and I completed the wilderness travel course. I participated in the wildlands campaign training. I joined the forest committee and became a member of the equity advisory group. I also serve, when I'm not volunteering with the Sierra Club, I am the Director of Policy Advocacy and Engagement for Friends of the LA River, which is a local environmental nonprofit, which is very much aligned and supports the mission and values of the Sierra Club. As a woman of color, I am very dedicated to creating an inclusive and diverse community within the Sierra Club. As a serving member of the ExCom and the Equity Advisory Group, I have recruited new, young, diverse volunteers and have worked with others to create tangible steps to create a more inclusive chapter. And to achieve our goals as a leading environmental organization, we need to collaborate with other important based organizations, like-minded groups, and with each other. So I believe that we can use our experiences, talents, and relationships to implement new initiatives and create a more promising Angeles chapter. So if you are striving for a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive community, then I ask for your vote so we can achieve these aspirations together. Thank you, and looking forward to questions for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Betty, you want to try again to see if we can hear you this time? You're muted. You're muted, Betty. Betty, you're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
All right. I apologize. I don't know what happened, but I could hear you at one point, see you. But anyway, my name is Bettie Pearson. I am with the Crescenta Valley Group, which is located in Crescenta Valley. If you know that area, then you would know where the Crescenta Valley is actually located. So I've been a member of the Sierra Club for about 8 years. I had heard about it through someone who would hike with the Sierra Club, but I didn't really get interested in it until I needed a group with whom to hike. And that's how I came to the Sierra Club, through its outings program. And I was part of this Crescenta Valley group, and I was asked by the chair to be the alternate for ExCom. And I wasn't even aware of what ExCom was all about. So I thought, well, I'll tag along with the real rep each Sunday that the ExCom met, in order to learn and kind of grasp what the ExCom was all about. And then a few years of that, and I was asked to become a candidate, and I said, okay, I'll try for that, and I was elected. So if I'm elected this time, this will be my third time, and it has been a work in progress for me. It was a really deep learning curve, trying to understand what the Sierra Club was about, how it functioned from bottom up, grassroots, boots on the ground kind of thing. And then as I learn, begin to appreciate what the Sierra Club does. It's kind of, I won't say in the background, but it supports conservancies and programs that really help to promote the environmental causes that we're all concerned about. We want fresh air. We want clean water. We want to enjoy open space. So, and the Sierra Club members fight hard for those kinds of things. And those are issues that I'm also aligned with. You want open space. I know the Crescenta Valley group had fought against a housing project, 2 of them, and was successful in keeping one of those projects out that would have been built right up against the mountains near.
15 seconds.
How many?
15.
Okay. All right. So if you vote for me, I'll continue those causes and continue to learn and to grow in the Sierra Club.
Thanks, Betty.
Thank you for your time.
Next, Jose. I think I lost you, Jose.
Sorry, my battery was running low.
Okay.
This was raised my hand earlier. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Jose Trinidad Castañeda. My chapter is the Orange County group, of the Angeles chapter. And the reason why I'm running is simple. We need greater representation for young people, LGBT people, indigenous people, people of color, all the way up and down the organization in the Sierra Club, if we're going to meet the challenges of the climate crisis in this next decade, very critical decade. I've been fighting, at least within my capacity, for community choice aggregation for a number of years here. I've been representing and advocating for environmental justice issues across LA and Orange County. And if you elect me to the executive committee, I want to continue to carry that energy, bring youth, just empowerment across the board into the Sierra Club Angeles chapter, because that is what will sustain our work over this next decade and century. It's critical that we center communities of color that have been disproportionately impacted by the climate injustices, by the housing crisis, by any number of things, whether it's the lack of access to clean water, lack of access to the outdoors. And that was my job. That was my job for years in Northeast LA and Southeast LA gateway cities, is getting young people of color from Cudahy and Compton to experience our beaches, our wildlife. And those are the kinds of values that I want you to understand about me and why I do what I do. There are plenty of well-qualified candidates that I see here. So I do want to give a shout out to Ora Vasquez. I do want to give a shout out to Diana Pena, because this is a team effort. Nothing that we do in stopping the climate crisis is competitive or a one-person job. This is a collaboration. This is a movement. And I am so proud to have spent the last few years as a Sierra Club member since 2018, working with people like Hoyen Ip, who attends almost every council meeting that I have ever been to, making sure there's public comment that's heard at the local level for climate solutions. And I think that's where I want to bring that kind of mindset into the executive committee, that some of our local activists are the ones carrying the torch, carrying the flags to these victories that we aspire to generate more of. And
15
what else?
seconds.
Like, we have a lot of work to do. I mean, think about it. I'm 30 years old. By the time that I'm 40, we'll lock in whatever global carbon emissions that are, going to designate the next 100 to 200 years of 2 to 3 centigrade increases in global average temperature. Yeah, I'm gonna be in this fight. I wanna be with you all in a capacity such as the executive committee leadership. So thanks for hearing me out. And my battery is dying, so I may not be able to answer all the questions, but I will be available on social media at Jose T. Castañeda 3 and by email, Jose4climate@gmail.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you. John Monsen.
This is John Monsen, Pasadena Group. I was trying to learn from my friend Bettie Pearson how to unmute. I've got it done, Betty. First, I wanted to give a shout out to Liliana Griego, who is someone who has been part of the Forest Committee I'm on, and I was on the nominating committee and helped encourage her to run. And so she's among several people who I would vote for who are technically running against me, but I don't actually think of it that way. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I have 21 years of leadership experience in the Sierra Club, making positive change happen and stopping bad projects. I've lived in Koreatown, Pasadena, the San Fernando Valley, and Orange County. I have cats named Che, Ernesto, and Bear. I am running for ExCom to provide leadership that we need as we face major changes. Some are long overdue, like our commitment to diversity and inclusion. Other changes, such as those based on the so-called structural assessment, are more problematic. And I think we need to put more of an emphasis on this. We face a day when the Sierra Club chapter staff could report to the National Sierra Club. My leadership experience will be an asset in fighting inappropriate change that could undermine our character as a grassroots organization. I'm committing to helping the Outings program get back on its feet, to be safer but without excessive red tape. If Outings needs a champion, I'll be there. Priorities important, and I will talk more about them in my closing. But they're only going to matter if we have ExCom members who we elect who have shown the ability to turn their ideas into campaigns or programs that achieve results. It was my honor to work for 7 years on the Sierra Club National Field Staff in Los Angeles, where I helped pass major public lands legislation. A campaign I led inspired the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy to pledge to turn around the horrible recreational conditions faced by predominantly Latino families along the East Fork of the San Gabriel River. I've been a leader on 18 successful conservation and equity campaigns, making the right kind of change happen. I'm currently leading a campaign for the Water Committee to stop the desert damaging Cadiz water mining project. Last year on the political committee, I led an effort that resulted in 3 conservative water board members being replaced by progressive people of color. I am co-chair of the Forest Committee, which I helped found. I also serve on the Wild and Herbal Wildfire Conservation and 3 statewide committees. I was the recipient, and I thank the chapter for giving me an Extraordinary Achievement Award 5 years ago. Part of it was in recognition for my work to help establish the San Gabriel Mountains National Monument. I have been a member of the Angeles Chapter Foundation and Conservation Chair of the 100 Peaks Group, and as well as an outings leader. I have fundraising experience. 15?
Yeah.
My endorsers include Martha Camacho Rodriguez, Susana Reyes, Sharon Koch, Liliana Griego, David Hockey, Juana Torres, Frank Gruber, and others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to like to ask the candidates not to type answers in the Q&A. It takes them out of my purview and is not fair to the other candidates. So if you have a question or you're typing, erase the answer, please. I'd like to talk, Annalise is next.
Hi, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all. My name is Annalisa Pineda Klein. I'm the Vice Chair of the Communications Committee. And I actually just moved, so I'm part of the Pasadena group. And I'm running for a member at large seat because I am passionate about the Sierra Club, its mission, its membership, and I bring the skills that will help us achieve our mission and make it more accessible for everyone. So in my professional life, I am a product designer. And as a designer, I research and listen to user feedback to help me problem solve and create solutions that enhance the user experience. And my job is dependent upon understanding the user and listening to diverse audiences. For the past year, I've been applying these skill sets of listening and problem solving and iterating to the Communications Committee, which has resulted in optimized workflows, better collaboration, and ensuring that a diverse audience is being accounted for. For the past year, I've worked hard to build a sense of community on our committee by prioritizing communication, inclusion, and respect. And I'm in the process of working more closely with chapter committees and ensuring better alignment on the information we share externally and internally. As an at-large ExCom member, I plan to bring these same communication and community building skills to the entire chapter. One of my goals is to also work more effectively with local organizations. So this will help us raise awareness of the Angeles chapter and also better serve our local communities. We need to recruit more community members who are not familiar with the Sierra Club, especially people of color and LGBTQI. Growing a more diverse membership with greater equity in mind will help us accomplish the Sierra Club's mission of explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. Finally, I have experience dedicating my time to environmental justice organizations, such as the Sustainable South Bronx in New York, City Harvest, and Catalytic Communities in Rio de Janeiro. I have governance experience as I recently wrapped up a 2-year term on the board of WCLA, and I'm ready to fully dedicate my time to the Angeles chapter. Thank you, and I hope I can count on your vote.
Thank you. Steve.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about why I'm running, introduce myself, and then be engaged with your questions. I'm in the Los Angeles group, and I'm a veteran college lecturer and as well as, of course, environmental advocate for quite a while. I mean, I was the kid from inner city Detroit who started the first recycling program in school. Years later, I joined the military to help pay for school and served in Iraq and got to see up close and personal the implications of our dependence on foreign oil. And that later inspired me to become active politically with various campaigns, Barack Obama not to mention, and just really become more engaged overall in these fights. And so I've advocated, with different groups for conservation of the San Gabriel Mountains, the Mojave. Many of these campaigns were with the Sierra Club. And of course, I've advocated for environmental justice around the Inglewood oil field. Shout out, and we're working with people from Culver City. So shout out to Culver City. We got some folks on the call. And then since then, I've been teaching, really the next generation of environmentalists at UCLA, UC Berkeley, and Santa Monica College, where I give lectures. So really, what we're seeing all across the country, we see the effects of climate change, the wildfires, the floods, the Hurricane Ida, and indigenous land protectors even fighting pipelines. And then tomorrow we have a recall election. And if anyone here can imagine what would happen if Larry Elder, if the no was not unsuccessful and Larry Elder got in, I mean, just imagine the impact on the environment. So really what this means is we cannot afford to take our foot off the gas. We must continue to pressing ahead for environmental justice and equity-centered policies that are really going to work for the communities that need them most and work to grow our membership and become very relevant in the lives of people from these diverse communities. So I'm running really to help to champion that, to keep up the fight and resistance here in Los Angeles and to grow our membership. So, and that's a commitment I make today, but regardless of what happens in the election. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Brian, you're next.
Good evening. My name is Brian Biery, and I want to thank the nominating committee for this opportunity to have a few minutes to chat with the membership. What I want to do for the this first opening comment is to talk about why I became involved in the environmental movement, and then the second one I'll use to describe a little bit about my experience. So I wanted to start with telling you a story. When I was a boy, we raised money for our elementary school by recycling newspapers. At the time, most every household received home delivery of a local newspaper, whether it was LA Times or the Pasadena Star News. And by the way, my group is the Pasadena group. Old newspapers would pile up in the back of the garage, waiting for the next paper drive at Hamilton School. In order to haul away enormous stacks of newspaper, the school would hire a double-wide trash dumpster that we would fill in a few hours on a spring Saturday morning. We used twine to wrap the newspapers in stacks that were light enough for us to carry into the enormous dumpster. Afterwards, we were covered with newspaper ink and raw from twine burns on our fingers, but we felt good. We thought we were helping the planet. Over the years, I've continued to follow the mantra of reduce, reuse, and recycle. During the pandemic, my trash hauling company changed and no longer offered a recycle bin. They said they would sort out the recycles at the plant. I was dubious of that claim. So for the past 16 months, I've been taking my weekly recycle pile to my mother's house to dump in her recycle bin. It makes me feel like I'm doing something beneficial and progressive. And frankly, it would be hard to change these habits because I know it'd feel as though I'm even more the problem than I already am. Somewhere between an inconvenient truth and chasing ice, I realized that my efforts were small, infinitesimally small compared to the massive problem. No matter how hard I worked to reduce my footprint, leave no trace, drive less, fly less, convert all my light bulbs to compact fluorescence and then to LEDs, it wouldn't make a difference. In those decades of personal pursuit of living light on the earth, the situation has only become dramatically worse. Individual action won't save the planet. Only collective action will. In order to have even the slightest chance of reversing environmental destruction, we have to work together. That means all of us on this call. That means, as others have said, to include other voices that aren't here. We must continue to build an environmental justice movement that includes everyone, no matter our racial, ethnic, gender, economic, religious age, ability, or any other type of difference.
15 seconds.
We must see the value of each and every member of the community and understand without a broad coalition of stakeholders, our efforts will not generate the momentum they need to create new cultural norms. I believe the Sierra Club is in the ideal position to be the leader of visionary change, and I respectfully ask for your vote for a position on the ExCom. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Aura.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aura Vasquez, and I am currently residing in Tobengaland, which is known as Los Angeles, and Mid-City Los Angeles, and I'm part of the Los Angeles Central Committee, for you to know. I am very grateful to the committee for nominating me to this position. Environmental justice has been at the core and my passion since I was 11 years old, and I watched a show about the ozone layer and the damage to our environment. I have experienced environmental injustice firsthand as a young Colombian which grew up with asthma, and I saw my mother constantly cleaning up black ash, and we experienced constant rooting odors, all from production of sugar cane. I bring my passion, the diversity of my background as an immigrant and as a woman of color, as well as my organizational ability to the Sierra Club Los Angeles chapter. And if elected executive committee member, I will focus on action-oriented aspects of the Sierra Club mission, which is educate, protect, and advocate for our environment. So some of the things that you know me for, I have a 2-decade experience on advocacy and policy on environmental issues. I have worked with many different groups all around the country, and I was the youngest ever commissioner to be appointed to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. I was also the first immigrant to ever be appointed. And one of the things that I take great pride of doing there was my transparency and being the first commissioner who hosted office hours to be accessible to everyone in our community. And I hope that the same attitude I can bring here to the Sierra Club. I help LA path to 100% renewable as a Sierra Club organizing representative working on the Beyond Coal campaign. And in 2013, we did this together. We got LA off of coal. And later, as a commissioner, I pushed for the retirement of 3 coastal gas plants, which made our goal to get Los Angeles to 100% renewables a reality. So we did all of this together. So I have rallied up hundreds of thousands of people together for a common goal. And that's what I'm planning to do here. I recently became the chair of the Climate Action Committee, and we have been doing wonderful things, including uplifting the ethos of environmental justice.
15 seconds.
And making sure that this is at the core of our work. We are at a critical time. We can have a Sierra Club that is more transparent, that is more diverse, and that it has bigger coalitions so we can have greater impact. I hope that I can count on your vote, and you can reach out to me anytime. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Wendy,
Diane?
David. Oh, there's another one?
One more, Diane? Oh no, not Dyana.
Yeah, yes, hi, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a Diane and a Diana, and I was calling on the wrong one. But,
No worries, yes, I'm Diana. Hi everyone, good evening. Diana Pena, that is. I'm from the Central Group, resident of occupied Tongva and Quiche land, also known as Linwood, California. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the nominating committee, first of all, for the nomination, but also just, I'm so excited for this roster of candidates. I'm just really proud to see everyone here with just all the experience you bring, the diversity. It really, I think it just is great to see that the chapter is moving in this direction, and I hope that we can just continue to welcome everyone here. So that's one of my major goals as a leader in the Sierra Club. So thank you so much again. And so I'm so excited to be running. My journey as an environmental leader actually started in 8th grade when my science class sold candy to go to the Catalina Island Marine Institute science camp. And since then, I've just been passionate about being that source of inspiration for others, being that light, to light the flame, to bring them into this movement. And so I've been lucky enough to dedicate my career to doing so. I currently work at Orange County Coastkeeper as a director of programs there, mostly working in education. But just again, to try and fulfill that purpose that I feel, because I really think that especially now at this point, as José mentioned earlier, we're running out of time, and we really need all hands on deck. But at the same time, I think it's important that we are doing the work and are actually being welcoming and are approaching it in an equitable way. And so that's a huge priority of mine as a leader. And I guess I should also mention, so I am currently an incumbent. I'm filling in a vacancy, but I'm proud to be running for the ExCom. I'm currently vice chair, and yeah, I've just found it very enriching, and I have found that hopefully my skills have been useful on the ExCom so far. And it's just been an honor to have served. My other experience with the Sierra Club is on the political committee of Orange County. I work down there, so I really felt the need for my volunteerism down there, especially politically. And I've also, just as the daughter of Mexican immigrants living in Southeast Los Angeles, I have direct experience with just systemic issues, environmental injustices, and I love where I live. I already think it's a great community, and I'm just dedicated to improving the health of our lives for myself, all of my neighbors. So yeah, I don't feel the need to move away. I just want to help everyone around me join us in this movement. So thank you so much for your consideration and for listening. I hope to be able to continue to bring this energy. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, David, I need to identify the incumbents.
Sure.
And Liliana Griego, Elizabeth Neat, Bettie Pearson, Diana Pena. Is that 4? Yeah. And also, all of them are completing terms. How do you do that? They're completing terms of someone who resigned. So here's a message to all of our candidates. You could be, if you're not elected, you could be in line to get on the ExCom anyway. So don't forget that part. Okay. Okay, David. Yeah.
All right. So let me talk about the questions. We have a number of really good questions, and they're going to want to prompt long answers. But I'd like you to keep your answers to about 1.5 minutes, if you can. There's a question about transparency. That part of our jobs to push for more transparency in governments. but you know, how do we make sure that the Sierra Club is transparent so we can walk the walk if we're talking the talk? So does anybody like to take that issue first? And Aura has her hand up, so go ahead, Aura.
Yeah, as someone that really believes in transparency, I think there is a huge disconnection between what the local chapter do and what the National Sierra Club does. And I live that firsthand when I work for the national campaign for the Beyond Coal campaign. So how do we alleviate that? With better communication and with more robust ways to communicate with each other. Right now, we have a pretty, maybe effective for some, maybe for not, way to communicate, which is our Google group or our group where we can kind of communicate. And right now in 2021, where we are at the mercy in California of so much technology, we should be able to utilize tools where we can all communicate with each other in a better way and not just through email. So I propose for us to continue finding more updated and more up-to-date ways in which we can communicate so that the grassroots, which is such an incredible ethos that this organization has, can continue informing what the leadership is doing at the national level and also at the executive committee level.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to just for a minute tell the candidates, do not type an answer in the Q&A. If you type an answer in the Q&A, it removes that question so nobody else can answer that question. It is not fair. You know, if we don't get a chance to answer all the questions, you'll have a chance to communicate privately with that person after the show is over. But you know, for fairness, if you've started to type, please do not finish that or it takes the question off the list. We have John, your hand was up. Do you want to go next on that question? We're talking about transparency.
Yes. I just wanted to mention that I agree that the National Sierra Club is not particularly good at transparency, and it's a major problem. We have a major organizational change coming down from the national level that almost no one knows about. It involves partly the structural assessment, but other elements too. If you read the structural assessment, very few people will read it, but it's really dense and really hard to understand. You have to kind of read between the lines about what they actually intend, because sometimes what they say they intend is clearly not what they intend. And so it's doublespeak. So from our national office, we're getting doublespeak on what's being planned. And what's being planned is essentially a centralization of power at the national level of things like staffing. Can you imagine what it'd be like if our staff reported to this Oakland office or the national office? You'd go to them for something and they'd have to check to see if that's something that would be a priority. So we're really in dangerous times internally, organizationally. And that's partly because the national office is not being transparent with us and not telling the breadth of members what's actually being planned. So I think we're in a transparency emergency when it comes to our own national leadership. Thanks.
All right. And Diana, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to add just quickly too. I think also in terms of transparency, accessibility is also very important. And so I've actually, while on the ExCom, and also I forgot to mention, I'm also on the Equity Advisory Committee. I started to run at a time there, but or Equity Advisory Group. And so one of the things that's been brought up is, you know, the ExCom meetings themselves and, you know, when they are, how long they are, they can be sometimes hard to attend, which not only makes it harder for some people to run for leadership, but then also for members that want to attend just to stay informed or ask questions. It's difficult to do that. So I'm, you know, already in the works on trying to figure out, working together with, you know, everyone involved to figure out how we can figure that out, make it more accessible so that we can be more transparent. So yeah, we're going to have to get creative, maybe utilizing technology, maybe putting together office hours. I don't know, but there are many ways that we can get creative to make ourselves more accessible, to be more transparent. But yeah, great question.
Okay, and Coby.
Sure, real quick. One of the other things, one of the other hats that I wear is I'm chair of the California Democratic Party Rules Committee. And one of the things that's very important to the party, even though we're not a government agency, is we do have an open meetings rule. And that rule, like many of the rules that come out of the Rules Committee, is very detailed. But the main thing is making sure that everyone who wants to know about meetings gets adequate notice of those meetings and that they have an ability to attend. Now, I know that a lot of organizations, including some that I'm involved with, are struggling, or they're struggling as they look to the future about what to do about hybrid meetings once we, once we get out of this pandemic. Attending meetings in person can be very difficult, especially for working people. And so, yet at the same time, I think we all know that while an all Zoom meeting can work from the conduct of a meeting, and an all in-person meeting can also work, hybrid meetings tend to be a little difficult. But nonetheless, I think we start by making sure that everything that we do is transparent, that people can see our meetings or watch our meetings, participate in our meetings in a reasonable way, and then figuring out how we can better use technology to have people connected to the club and have people connected to the deliberations of the ExCom is going to be something very important. I also do just want to echo what John said about really pushing National to be more transparent as well. I think that's a huge problem, and the idea that National is sending down edicts to us is a real problem.
All right. Liliana?
Thanks. Yes. Yeah, I wanted to speak a little bit about hybrid meetings and being able to use technology to help create more accessibility, to then create more transparency. I know it's kind of, some of us are a little zoomed out sometimes, but to have that option, at least to be able to tune in virtually on a meeting, so that you can at least hear some of that information that's being shared and be up to date on things, I think is really important. But also, of course, still trying to figure out how we can have more in-person meetings as well, but having the options, I think, is important.
Okay. Brian.
Yeah, when we think about transparency, part of it is built on trust. So one of the ways to develop trust within any community or any group is to have leaders who are available and communicative and ready to respond when, so you see it on a city council level, you see it on state legislature level. So having your elected official be present, be available, be able to answer questions. The other part is to be able to have, I love the idea of open meetings, but then to have an archive of what those meetings consisted of that's readily available. And I also love the comment about accessibility. So when we think about that, one of the other areas the Sierra Club might explore is also language accessibility. So it's on a couple of different levels. So thanks for the question. It's a very good question.
Yeah, there's so many good ones. Annalise, you didn't raise your hand, but do you want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah, I think transparency is definitely very key to how an organization runs. And I think that it's possible to create transparency from the ground up, from the committee level, from the within a committee, amongst the committees, and being able to really break down any segmentation that might exist. From there, we can really share our information and better work as like a more cohesive unit. And I think that's definitely really a great path forward to promoting transparency.
Thank you. Jose, you didn't get a chance, you didn't raise your hand. Do you want to speak? Are you there? I actually don't see him signed on. His battery must have died. Betty, you didn't raise your hand. Do you want to say anything about this?
Yes, I was trying to raise my hand here, but because of the way the Sierra Club is structured, it's kind of difficult to say transparency. Are we talking national? Are we talking the chapter or just regional groups or committees? And I can only deal with it from the standpoint of the regional group. And it's never been like secret, esoteric, or hidden. It's just that trying to attract people to, for example, a program has been sometimes successful, depends on the topic, and sometimes not. But one thing that has happened recently that kind of rose out of the pandemic is we are doing webinars, and David has hosted those along with Pat Kramer, and they've been very successful. The first one that they were there, we're having another one next month, but it pulled in 500 people, I think, for the first one, if I'm not mistaken. So that has been a big benefit in getting out the message, the word about what is going on in our areas, the kinds of issues that are of concern to us as a regional group. I can't figure and wrap my head around transparency for the chapter. And for national, it just seems kind of remote. But I guess me personally, if I had had some concern with national, I could just personally attack it myself and figure out a way to get a resolution. But that's my take on transparency.
Thank you.
From a group level.
Steve, you didn't get a chance to say anything. Do you want to speak on this issue?
I'd sure say a few words. I don't want to sound redundant, but I'll just echo a lot of the sentiments that others have said here. And, really, I would just add, it's really about meeting people where they are. And, from the standpoint of the organization, and sharing records of more records of such meetings, making sure that they're readily available. Becoming more comfortable with social media, going live on Instagram, and using other forms of communication that people are using all the time to be able to communicate out. And just because the question also talked about transparency in government, let's get the most relevant stakeholders in government to commit to having a regular town hall session with our organization to be able to discuss the issues. I think we find a lot of our elected officials would be open to that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We have so many good questions, and it really looks like if we answered them all, we would be here till about midnight. Which, I hope you're all prepared for that, because ExCom meetings are not fast, because there is a lot of topics. And I'd like to talk about, there are some specific issues, and just to let you know, I'll email everything to everybody, and I think we'll forward these questions to ExCom because they're good questions to ask. I think, there are topics that could be brought up, like this transparency would be good in the ExCom meeting. So there are some specific policies with the Sierra Club. So they have national policies that have impacted us, and there's different takes on these. I believe a couple of the candidates of you have mentioned the reorganization plans and national that they're doing. There's a national infill policy, which reflects housing policy. There are the beyond coal policies. So, I'd like to invite you to talk about, a national policy that you have an opinion on. And I think that will answer several of these questions going that way. So anybody like to volunteer to go first on that? Or I can call on people. There we go. Coby.
Sure. Probably won't surprise people that I'm deeply concerned about nationals developing policy on outings. For those of you who are not familiar with this, in order to restart outings, which have been suspended since the beginning of the pandemic, National is putting into place, or proposing putting into place, a whole series of very restrictive and invasive questionnaires and all kinds of policies that essentially would make conducting outings in the way that we're used to very difficult. So I'm going to say, I'm also going to say that I'm trained as a lawyer, and I see some of the stuff that's coming out of national as being driven by, I think, misplaced liability concerns. And I think as a lawyer, I think I'd be well positioned to fight back against some of these really misguided policies that I see coming out of national. And I think that if a chapter as powerful and as strong and diverse as Angeles were to fight back in a united way, we could not only have a positive impact on restarting outings in a way that's reasonable, but could also affect national policy on a variety of other issues that are important to all of us.
Thank you. John, you had your hand up. Do you want to speak? Or...
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Couple of quick ones. One, I have read all the outings materials, and I actually sat in on a Pasadena group meeting when they were trying to figure out what outings to schedule. They decided to schedule no outings because it was too bureaucratic to do outings. What were people discussing? Setting up meetup meetings. So what we're doing is we're out migrating future members because we aren't willing to have an outings program. So what we're going to have is a great liability program. Now, any business knows that you don't manage in order to prevent liability. You manage your business in order to have a business. So for us, we need to find a way to increase outing safety, but we have to have an outings program. So I just wanted to agree with Coby on that. It's a major problem. Also, we've already talked about the coming Sierra Club policies on chapter staffing and other things. I think that's actually an internal emergency. On infill, I work with the Wild and Urban Wildfire Committee in the chapter. And what we really want is to make sure that zoning is such that there's no more housing built in extremely high fire hazard zones. And so that's something that we want to see happen. And then we have to find some way of actually building an infill. And the problem is that abstractly, we have a infill policy that sometimes makes sense, but when it comes down to specific development, generally those get a great deal of opposition. So there's some way we need to align our actual field housing policies with what our national policy is. But that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to volunteer? There we go. Diana?
Yeah, just I wanted to comment on policy just really quickly. I know that policy sometimes can be a way for systemic issues to form and cement themselves in the organization just in general. So I just want to ensure, anyone here that I will be hyper vigilant, trying to, do my best to make sure that that's not happening, especially with the restorative accountability changes that are happening in the organization. And I welcome any, that's why I love this idea of office hours, but any sort of discussion and feedback on any policies, especially if there are ones that I, maybe will disagree with. I'm always open to exploring why, there's a disagreement there. Maybe there's something that I don't know or that I can share. And so I find that is very important. Yes, that's my take on policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Aura?
The Sierra Club has been really intentional in making the club more diverse. And I think that has come in all levels of the Sierra Club, national, local level. And I'm not talking just diversity on the makeup of our ethnicity, ages, gender and sexual orientation. I'm also talking about that for the first time. The Sierra Club has taken on other issues like immigration, like housing, which I see in the chat, and other issues that traditionally, as a conservationist organization, the Sierra Club never took in before. So here is what I believe. The Sierra Club right now is crying for a leadership that is integrating everything. And we see that in every place, we see it kind of popping up in a random and weird way. I see in the questions, for example, someone asked the chair of this environmental justice subcommittee, as if we're planning to work together with them. Absolutely. We need to be all integrated and we need to be all working together, because just like John is mentioning about not building housing in high fire areas of California, we also need to think about how we're going to bring more affordable housing to places in Los Angeles and in California so that people don't have to commute so much, so that we don't have so much greenhouse gas emissions that are polluting communities of color. So what I'm trying to say is this: we might be a small group. This might be, you know, a small, one more board in the many boards that the Sierra Club has, but we can be an example of how we can work together and really show national and really show other chapters how we can do so much more by looking at our board and all of that committees and see how we can organize together and build together.
Thank you. I can call on people. Annalise, do you want to say anything?
I was actually just about to raise my hand.
Oh,
so
here we go.
I just want to say that I actually very, very much agree with that. I think it's very much up to recognizing that all of our committees, all of our regional groups, we're all trying to fight for the same thing. We're trying to fight for the same overarching goal. And it's, I think, very important for us to recognize that and remind ourselves of that when we're fighting for these even small things are part of these larger goals. And it's important to always remember that. Additionally, kind of going back to what I was saying at the beginning, I think that it's also important to continue looking at outside local organizations and bringing those organizations in and being, you know, kind of bringing those ideas, those people in, so to make us stronger, to make our positions on policy stronger and more effective and better for people, our communities. You know, I think that's very important.
Betty, do you want to say anything?
Well, I was just going to follow up what was said about the outings and how it's kind of at a standstill. And I mean, I'm an outings leader and I do day hikes and backpack trips, but what has been kind of a deterrent is having to wrestle with the form that is going to solicit what I and some others in my group consider confidential information. So for right now, this is something that's floating down from national. It's going to, I think, if we can't get it back, if we can't get the outings program back up and running, it's going to affect membership. There have been folk that have, for example, myself, but there have been others that I've been with on hikes and trips, and you can promote the Sierra Club best when you're outdoors and involved in some kind of activity that people enjoy, and got members that way through the outings program. So I'm just kind of following up what has already been said, that I'm kind of disappointed with how national is viewing what used to be a lot easier to get underway. It's a simple hike.
Thanks, David. I want to say a couple things. The first one is that I love being surrounded by people who are policy wonks, or the people who are fascinated by policy, because it's something that speaks to me deeply. The other part is, I think that what was said before about the Sierra Club being in a transitionary moment or an evolutionary moment is really fascinating. And I also love being surrounded by people who are passionate not only about the environment, but about human rights, about civil rights, about gender rights. You know, when we solve for the problems of the least of these, the people who have the least amount of resources, everyone benefits. When we focus on the needs of the needy, then we all improve. So the one area that I wanted to mention was housing. And some of the work that I've been doing lately is on affordable housing projects. So everything from recreating a statewide redevelopment entity to be able to fund. One of the challenges we have when we're developing affordable housing in Pasadena is that there aren't enough funds to subsidize the affordability. So that one is really important. The next one is this whole notion of, you know, with the pandemic, protections for evictions, and then protections for rent, because we're going to see, as we evolve out of the pandemic, a lot of pressure on renters. Just a tidbit is that 60% of Palestinians are renters. That means only 40% of the people are homeowners. One of our goals is, or the goals that I've been working on, is to try to switch that number so we have more people who are homeowners. I could go into a lot more detail about that, but I don't want to bore you now. Anyway, housing is really important to me, and I'm glad that the Sierra Club is working on it as well.
Excellent. Liliana?
Yes. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the outings policy. You know, that's such an important way to bring in new members, new volunteers, and create those connections with nature and with one another. So I think, you know, having these difficult policies that are trying to get implemented is going to be, it's going to cause it's causing a lot of issues. And we're even discussing this in our equity advisory group, because this is becoming an accessibility issue as well as an equity issue. And then, you know, a lot of folks are talking about this intersectionality around, you know, we're in a climate crisis, but we're also in a housing crisis. And more specifically, we're in an affordable housing crisis. So how do we work with other groups? How do we tackle these issues? You know, I'm working with the Sierra Club on a specific project because there's hardly any affordable housing, 8%. You know, so we need to work together to increase affordability and within Los Angeles, and then just gain stronger partners as well around these specific issues.
Thank you. Steve, you have anything you want to add to this conversation?
Oh, sure. You know, a wonderful activist around in the issue of housing that I know actually said that there's no public good without equity. And, you know, in everything that we're doing, we should be thinking about that. And also I agree with it being intersectional as well. You know, and we have such an opportunity to be able to bring people into the organization by, I think, connecting the dots on a lot of these issues and speaking to what people also enjoy doing too, in terms of the outdoors. So I'm for that and coordination, particularly listening to what local chapters like the Angeles chapter is saying that can, you know, that can then be pushed at the national level versus the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we have some, you know, we have so many questions, and so we had a request, which I think is good, to just give you a summary of what the questions are, and then if any of the, you know, each candidate's going to have 2 minutes to give a closing statement, and you want to incorporate any of these questions. You know, are you aware of the Angeles chapter environmental and social justice group? And could you, you know, for transparency, there's a question about there's some policies of landfills where, you know, at one time the community was the club was against the landfill, but now, you know, maybe not so against the landfill, and some confusion in policies. There was a request for clarification. You know, is there, you know, how would you deal with conflict of interest? You know, if you're involved with a group that's opposed to Sierra Club policies, how do you get more members engaged in climate activism? You know, how do we deal with people with different perceptions in the organization that come to the table in ExCom with different backgrounds? And there was a question, which I'll skip this one and come back. There's the Environmental Justice Committee has an official housing campaign, which I believe is aligned with the infill policy. That's just a comment. And they're working with the Sierra Club, and they'd like to hear what campaigns you've been involved with. So you can see, we could go till midnight. And then there was a question, is there a questionnaire, and are there going to be candidate statements? And yes, there are. And Donna, you want to tell them about, you know, when that's coming out, where they're going to be able to see the bios and the statements from each candidate?
Well, at least by October 4th.
Yeah. So that will be with the election materials. They'll be able to see all that.
I think so.
Yeah, and that will give you a chance to get a more complete picture of everybody you've seen. And this is being recorded. So I have a random number generator. So I'm going to call on you in the order that it came up, and we're going to look at 2 minutes. If you go over, if you go over, we'll give you 15 seconds, not 15 minutes to finish up. But then, please do. So I don't have to mute anybody. Brian, would you like to go first, please?
Just before you start the clock, a quick clarifying question. Did you want me to answer every single one of those questions?
No, just to let you know, if there's something that particularly sticks out. It's just like, when there were questions about, the outings, how would you support outings? But, that got incorporated into other questions. So, if you have, if something that was asked jogged your memory, but you will have an opportunity to contact the person that asked each question, if you would like to do that after the meeting and have a private conversation with them.
Great. Thanks for answering that. So I won't try to answer all of them, but one that's really important, I think, is the campaigns we've been involved with. So what I wanted to share with the group was much of my activism and community organizing has been focused on outside of the environmental movement. So in particular, I've done a lot of work in social justice around the prison industrial complex. So one of the campaigns I worked on was to place on all of our applications here in the city of Pasadena and statewide, to take off the question whether you're convicted of a felony or not. Another one was a statewide project on reducing sentences that evolved into Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109. Another campaign that I worked on was the development of structures for people who are coming out of jail and prison so that they would be able to land a little bit more effectively in our communities and be welcome. So reintegration programs, and I developed several of those here in Pasadena. On the environmental side, I'm a member of the Pasadena Environmental Advocates, Pasadena Audubon Society. I'm working with Amigos de los Rios to transform John Muir High School, ironically, Muir High School, into a more environmentally friendly campus and to green the campus, and then to take away some of the asphalt and concrete that surround a lot of our teens and put permeable landscapes and rain capture. So I would very much appreciate your support in this candidacy, and I'd be happy to expand on my experience both as an advocate and community organizer and educator. So thank you, David. Hopefully that wasn't over 2 minutes.
Oh, that was great. You finished with 1 second to spare. Diana, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, thank you so much. So yeah, I saw a couple really, well, so many, all the great questions, but a couple that stood out to me. So I think firstly, I'd like to just touch on how skillfully moving through conflict in a generative manner. I love that just statement in general, to open new possibilities. I really think that's a huge issue that we are working on currently in leadership, and just I think in the chapter in general, and I think in the Sierra Club in general. But I think focusing on that I think it's really what's going to make us, first of all, that welcoming community that we strive to be, and also the force that we really can be, working together efficiently, keeping that mission and in focus. So I think that, that work is very valuable and should be, we should continue to focus on that. I also thank Yvonne for putting her email in there. I'll be reaching out to you, and hopefully we'll be working more with you, hearing more from you, and joining that that committee and as many committees as I can, frankly, to just really stay informed as to what what are our members saying, what are the major concerns, and how can we work creatively to really work towards solutions. And to touch on policy again, we had some more questions, especially about, we touched on housing, and so that to me is also very, very important. And I almost see it as like a good challenge, a fun challenge for us to be able to figure out, maybe because I majored in urban planning, policy, and design, but how can we figure out our issues, our urban issues, and being, environmental while also being equitable and bringing in justice. And so all of those things are interconnected. And so I think I'm up to the challenge to see if we can figure that out. And I wanted to again mention that I'm open to learning from everyone here, all our members. I think we all have something valuable to bring. We're all here for a reason. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you.
John, I'm sorry, John, is this, in this time, we can also use it for our closing statement?
This is your closing statement.
This is our closing statement. Okay.
Yeah, we're run out of time if we kept answering questions.
Perfect.
So Annalise, you're next up.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. So many great questions. I would love to continue with, follow up with all of these people and answer these questions. But in closing, I wanted to just reiterate my passion for the Sierra Club and Sierra Club mission. It's all of its wonderful members. I've really enjoyed, getting to know everyone in my time here. And I've enjoyed demonstrating my leadership, my skills, my commitment to the communications committee during my time. I'm committed to helping grow our membership, grow our, our donations. And I believe that all of this and how we sort of face all of these issues, our policy issues are perhaps issues of transparency, are issues of segmentation amongst groups. I think that how we face this will determine how we grow as an organization. And I think it's really important that we communicate, that we work as a group, that we recognize that we're all really great members, all of us all together in our own ways. And I want to say I'm really ready to fully dedicate my time and attention to the work of the executive committee, to the work of the Untitled Chapter. And I ask for your support and hope I can count on your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Aura.
All right. I would love if everyone here watching this forum and later, if you can vote for me. Because what the Sierra Club ExCom committee needs is someone that has experience, that has leadership experience, that has organizing experience, that can bring people together, that understands what's at stake, that loves the Sierra Club, and is willing to do the hard work, which is bringing us together. And together we can do so much. We can fight this current climate emergency together by enacting policies that reflect our values. We can also uplift a new membership. We can engage new people. And how? There are 100 ways that we can do that, through the outings, through the issues that we work on, through how we communicate with other people. We can also modernize the Sierra Club so that we can better work together, so that we can align better and that we can communicate in a much better, more effective way. And of course, we can also bring in a new constituency of Sierra Club members that are going to fight for climate, that are going to be incredible environmental stewards, that we can do we can envision a new fundraising way and a new way to show the world how it gets done and how we can do it together. So I hope I can count with your vote. Don't forget, I think it's October 4th. You can reach out to me. I don't know if I can post it on the comments or something like that, but it's Aura Vasquez Official and on social media. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty, you're next.
I think one of the questions was about fundraising, and since fundraising outings have really taken a big hit. I've kind of wrestled with what it is that we could do that would be still in compliance with national policy. And for the time being, what I'm involved in is just working with what's already available. We have Team Sierra, and there is a hike that is scheduled, and our group and members of our group signed up to participate in that as a fundraiser. As to how to entertain questions from a diverse group of people, I don't think anybody's opinions should be closed down. If somebody has a question or an issue, and this is and we are at a forum where those kinds of questions or issues can be heard, then I would not be inclined to shut that person down. Let the person talk. You know, there's going to be some parameters to that, like time and all that. One of the things that I have taken an interest in is the Transportation Committee, which is part of conservation, has this infill policy that I think is really workable for much of Los Angeles as we grow and expand, and the cars, and the number of cars, and the number of people. And it seems to me that it's already in effect, because people now can live closer to where they work and rely more on public transportation rather than using that car to get where they need to go. And as a final statement, I've already said that this will be my third time as at-large member, and just look forward to serving for this next term. That's about it for me.
Thank you. John?
Thank you very much. I assume you can hear me now. Thank you. There was a question about fundraising experience. Yes, I do have fundraising experience from my own consulting business. When I was at UC Irvine, I actually worked for part of the time at grant under the grants department. And when I worked for the Sierra Club, I helped do some fundraising. My email address is John Monsen, that's JOHNMONSEN, #1 @gmail.com. Feel free to email me about anything you'd like that relates to the Sierra Club.
We'll share that information with everybody afterwards.
Great.
Yeah.
I agree with Aura that really one thing we need is people with leadership experience and organizing experience. I've been an organizer within the Sierra Club for almost 20 campaigns over 20 years, most of them successful. It's a job of convincing people to do what they already wanted to do had they only known. I know the Angeles chapter well, its people and its programs. And I wanted to mention a few other priorities that we might want to consider. I think we ought to have a major multi-year membership program to attract especially younger, more diverse people demographically that are massively underrepresented in our membership. And I think we can do special programs, especially with outings, to attract those people. And by being more diverse, we'll enhance our power and influence. We also need to improve nature access for under-resourced communities. One way of doing this is by creating a national recreation area along the San Gabriel River, which some of us on the Forest Committee have been working for the last decade. That's currently in legislation. But I think we also are to partner with groups like Nature for All to help develop programs like Transit the Trails, which they're working on, and additional areas where by improving the connections with the National Forest to the north, we create recreational opportunities to the south of the Angeles National Forest. I have an MA in social sciences from UC Irvine. I did field work in the Tukul, Yucatan. And I have a BA in comparative culture. And I think I am someone who works well with other people, listens to other people's ideas, and likes to help them develop and succeed. I think I'd be a good colleague for those of you who are already on the ExCom. And I think I would be someone that I would hope everyone would consider voting for. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, David and Donna, for organizing this forum. It's been fun and very valuable listening to everyone's tremendous value that they bring in terms of perspective. So thank you. And I just want to say, you know, this is a really great opportunity, you know, for, you know, the Angeles chapter to continue the good work and also to be able to be that model of what you know, an organization like the Sierra Club can do for our communities. And you know, we've got so many issues, and and again, as I maybe mentioned about equity earlier, you know, we've got a lot of things that are going on in terms of like carbonization and other issues that, you know, people in communities really need to understand, down to how is this going to affect my utility bills? You know, what is going to happen here? And I think that the Sierra Club has a great opportunity to be that conduit organization for our communities to better understand what these things mean, and then also to keep up the fight at the local, state, and national level for the policies that are reflective of these communities. So I ask for your vote, and really would appreciate your support, and I'm available if anyone would like to communicate after this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Liliana?
Hi. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining this evening and asking such great questions. It's been a privilege to serve on the executive committee, and I would be very honored to be able to serve for a second term. And, you know, when I first joined the Sierra Club, I was given a warm welcome and was provided a lot of support, specifically with some members who quickly became mentors of mine. I was given scholarships for different trainings. The folks let me borrow their gear to go backpacking. And most importantly, people shared space and knowledge. And I think this is really important if we want to expand the club, if we want to bring in new members, if we want to have a more inclusive environment, because the Sierra Club can be kind of intimidating. It's a massive organization with folks who have been members for decades, and it can be hard to navigate with all the committees and groups. And so I really feel like if we create a more inclusive environment, we'll be able to attract more folks, and also just answering so many of the questions that came up. You know, how do we get more climate activists? How can we resolve some conflicts in the chapter? How do we get more, how do we support outings, right? All of this is, you know, systemic change to create a more inclusive environment, to then create a healthy environment within the club and chapter. So, you know, as an ExCom member, I really want to make sure that all feel welcomed and supported. And so I just thank everyone for their time, and I ask for your vote so we can continue to find opportunities for growth and create a more inclusive community that will blossom into a diverse and thriving chapter.
Thank you. And Coby.
Well, thank you. And I want to start also by asking for your vote. I also want to say I'm deeply impressed with every candidate. This is a very, very strong group, and I know that whoever the members elect, we're going to have a very strong chapter executive committee. I was going to spend more time talking about how outings are transformational and how I want to continue to make sure that we continue the work of preserving our outings program, pushing back against national. But I do want to talk a little bit also about some of the other things that I do to give you an idea about kind of how I spend my time. I was a little hesitant when I first heard that tonight was going to be when the forum would be, because I have today and for most of the last 3 decades have run voter protection for the California Democratic Party. And so I've been pretty busy for the last couple of weeks, and even weeks before that, training people in how to protect the vote, making sure that the folks that are out in the field know what the law is, making sure that they're doing everything they can to beat back this recall, because we know that as much work as there is to do, losing tomorrow would be a huge setback. And I know that the Sierra Club is nonpartisan, but I deeply believe in so many of the values that animate the Democratic Party. And I know that there's a great deal of overlap between those values and those of the Sierra Club. I also want to talk just a little bit about some of the work that I do professionally. I tend to take on clients that really do good work and whose values I agree with. One of my proudest moments in my professional career occurred just a few years ago when I helped end a 70-year-old battle over the 710 tunnel. Some of you, since I hear so many people from Pasadena, I know you're familiar with that battle. I was hired to finally put the final nail in the coffin of the tunnel, and it took 2 years, but it culminated in a unanimous vote by the Metro Board to finally, once and for all, kill that tunnel, opening up nearly $1 billion of funding that, instead of being used for a highly destructive tunnel, would be used instead for the kinds of transportation and transit projects that I know that we're all in favor of.
You want to wrap it up?
Sure, absolutely. Those are the kinds of projects that I work on professionally. I have a great deal of political knowledge and connections. I'm an activist and also a professional, and I'm sure that I could work with everyone on the ExCom to turn the Sierra Club's values into action and policy. So thank you, and I hope I've earned your vote.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the candidates for coming. I've been on the ExCom as a group rep. I didn't go through the election process like all these folks are doing. And the ExCom is not about self-gratification. It is a lot of work. You have pages and pages of reports to do, long meetings, and then you get involved with other issues. So, it's almost a full-time job for some people on the ExCom. So, I've got to tell you, you all made my job of deciding who I'm going to vote for almost impossible now, because I'd vote for every one of you. So now it's going to be very difficult. Donna, do you want to say anything in closing?
Yeah, I'm kind of proud of the candidates too, all of them. I worked really hard, and the chair, Tajinder Dhillon, she could have fired me at any time. I mean, I loved this job. I've never done this, the nominating committee, and I found my calling. No, I really had a good time. And I do want to mention there's, so we have the incumbents, and there's 4 more people on the ExCom: Marsha Hanscom, Lynn Plambeck, Dennis Loya, and Jason Eastless, who will come up for election next year. Well, next time around anyway. So that rounds out the ExCom plus the 14 regional groups who will all be. And then I do have to say one more thing. We had to really like pulling teeth to get candidates. I sent out emails. We did blogs on the website. We all sent out on our personal lists, and so I mean, we worked 4 months from March, April, May, June, pulling together candidates, and we also have about 30 waiting in the wings that said, well, maybe, and I will never forget those. I mean, they are down in my book. So, but I'm really proud of all of you. And it's gonna be a hell of an election. So, I think that's it. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who took the time to learn about and meet the ExCom candidates and all the candidates for spending your evening with us. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody.